it until Monday hit. Because when Monday hit, pre-week launched, and I was submerged in a community of people that you had told me to, hey, go look at the lives, go look at the community. The community's awesome, the people are great. And I was so busy creating that I never stopped to go jump in and feel them, right? I was there, look.
Of course she was busy creating. She has multiple videos to record for the Get Fit 60-day challenge. She was not at a place where she could be doing lives. I mean, she's just, this is why she should stick to what she does, which is the fitness thing. Anything beyond that, as far as trying to help anybody organize anything in their lives, I think she needs to keep out of that space, because she's obviously gets overwhelmed and does not know how to portion out her day and organize her day in such a way that she will not be overwhelmed or anxious. So that's not good.
But I was never really in it. And that first live on Monday, it freed me, because I was like, wow, okay, wait, who cares? Literally, I got to a point where I'm like, who cares about everyone else outside of it? Like, all that matters is what's in this bubble, and this bubble is so appreciative and so proud and ready, and they are on fire, right? But before, it was definitely, I felt the week before pre-launch is the same way I felt the weeks leading up to the summit, to the event, which when things get really hard for me and really heavy, and I start to act out of fear and like desperation, right? Like that same way that you were with the book, same way, because I was inside of it with you creating, we did the book tour, all those different.
I'm, again, very appreciative that they are talking so open and honestly about things that most of us would not want to talk about open and honestly about. I don't know if I was creating a fitness and health podcast if I would want to be out here talking about all the anxiety that I'm suffering creating this challenge. Reason being is that stress and anxiety are very impactful on your health and can have tremendous effects on your health in the long term. So I don't know if this is the message that you want to be sending your participants. I think this, though I can appreciate her openness, as I said, and I think that's what social media drives individuals and people to have to be, and that is open and, you know, letting everything out. And I think this is what both he and Heidi have done, and I think that they have learned somewhere in here, and I don't know if Heidi has learned as much as Dave has, that the reaction from social media and from the public at large may not be very positive, and that may turn around and impact your business that you are trying to sell. And if you're not having that curated brand, then you could really make a mishap. And I just think that when you have a fitness person, especially, you know, working in the healthcare industry, I know that stress and anxiety really impacts your health. And so I don't know if I want that as part of my brand. And I think for Heidi, stress, anxiety, codependency, disorganized, especially from that whole passport incident, and that I would not be surprised if Dave had thought twice about wanting to have somebody who could not even take the time to get her passport organized when he had gone out of his way to do this as a birthday gift, no matter how much cost or how little impact it has to somebody such as Dave financially. I know that he probably has big expenses. I know how much my expenses are, and my lifestyle, not all that in a bag of chips, and it's not cheap. I can't imagine, it just is like a kick in the teeth somewhat. So I just, I just don't know. I would not want to be taking part in this. I just wouldn't. I would not. I think I could figure out my own thing much better. And if you want to follow my fitness routine for free, be my guest. I won't charge you anything.
Things. And I remember I was your calming agent, and you now are mine. In both situations, you were my calming agents the week leading up to the summit and the week before this. But there's something in my head these last 2 times. By far, Dave, you have seen me at my hardest, lowest, most doubtful, right? But also, these were the 2 biggest challenges probably of my professional life alone, because I've never done something of this magnitude alone.
Yeah.
And so there was a part of me that was like, if it's this hard, is it meant to be? And I even had said it to you both times. I said, I feel like if I'm trying to force this, it's not meant to be. And it's like, I'm like force versus flow.
I think she tried to bite off more than she could chew. And I think that's what she realized. I think she thought Dave was going to be there, and he had a lot more experience of putting on conferences and large conferences and working with social media. And so she was relying on his expertise. But really, what she needed him on that sort of business level. But she was the one who's trying to produce all of this content for a fitness program. And it's a lot of content. It's a lot of content. And I don't think she has the gazelle-like intensity to necessarily have produced it in a realistic time frame. I think it's just, I can't imagine having charged people for this, and the amount of difference that she is trying to bring into it with Facebook groups. And you've got to engage, so she's got to spend time engaging in her Facebook community. She is trying to do her regular lives for engagement, and when she also does not have content, and she probably needed to have somebody getting her on a schedule so that every day she was working towards producing her videos and her content. I think this one came too soon after that huge conference that she just had, the Show Up conference. I think she has just tried to do too much. And just maybe this was not where she needed to start with. Maybe she just needed to do some booty exercises on YouTube or something, and build an audience that way and get a community started. I think she was just really, I think she just, it's a lot. This is like probably one person trying to do what an entire business tries to do. And so I think she bit off more than she could chew. I think that definitely happened.
How do you know the difference when you're forcing something that's not meant to be, and when something's just hard and it's a challenge that you're meant to overcome? I could not figure it out in the moment. And I actually think I said, I hate this in both instances.
I'm sure she does hate it. And I don't know if your audience needs to hear that either. That you kind of hate what you're producing, because as I said, I think she bit off more than she could chew. She created a 60-day challenge. I think it could have been a much easier format. I think she wanted to charge a higher price point, and when you're doing that, you're going to have to provide a lot more to your audience for that price point. And I think there's just a lot of other fitness people in this space. She doesn't even have like a podcast. I think she was bouncing off of Dave's audience, which is just like, obviously, he and his wife have just divorced, and it's a messy audience. you know, I don't think you should mention that you hate what you did, I'm sure, because it's a heck of a lot of work. And when you have that much work and very little time, and you still need to balance out the rest of your life because she's still a mom with children, she's trying to be a girlfriend, which we know she didn't do a great job of that because she couldn't get her passport renewed in time for her birthday event, because she's trying to take a holiday that's supposed to be a break, which sounded like the most stressful thing I could imagine experiencing. She's like trying to laugh it off in her car, which is, you know, I guess great when you know, have the sort of freedom that she has, but not really, because she had to produce this new program, and she had nothing ready to go. And it's like, you know, procrastinating for your college paper. It's the only way that I probably can equate this to. And I'm sorry if my lighting suddenly went funky. I went from daylight to nightlight, and I just want to get this filmed and get it out so I can get my oh shit, I keep knocking the camera. Get my crap out here too. Because this is part of what it feels like to me. Is like, I don't know if Heidi went to college or not. I'm not sure. I would love to do a deep dive into Heidi Powell because she's fascinating to me. Because she's done very well for herself financially. She looks like she lives one heck of a life, you know, and it's been a very privileged life. And I'm always fascinated with people who have come from maybe humble beginnings and have been able to really elevate into like living like kings would have wanted to live at times back in the day. I mean, just the life and the ability to go to breakfast and probably waking up whatever time you want to, you know, unless you have a meeting. I mean, it must be wonderful. I've been a 12-hour nurse on the floor with shifts that have lasted like 20 hours. So it sounds like it just, you know, like a lot of fun. But if you have bitten off more than you can chew, I've said this 16 times, and you have like the procrastinating, and you haven't organized, and you're not used to having to bring out this much content suddenly, and then you're having to produce new content, and you just probably feel overwhelmed and scared, and just like you want to have a big old sinkhole take you in and take you down and out, because you have to face the reality of what you have created for yourself. And this is the reality that she's created. She wants to be in this space. She wants to be a social media influencer. She wants to have a mark in the fitness world. She wants to make a difference in people's lives, you know. I think there are other ways to do it, but this is how she's chosen to do it, and I don't think it has been as financially rewarding and as mentally rewarding as she hoped. That's what I'm just kind of getting the feeling of listening to this adult talking.
That pressure, that not feeling enough was so freaking hard for me.
Yeah.
And now in both instances, keeping going because I had to, because I had people who were counting on.
Not feeling enough in adult terms often means like you haven't made enough money from it either. So I think that the amount of money that she has earned comparatively to the number of hours that she has probably invested into this project may not be equating, and that's where she is talking about the anxiety, and then she has to realize that she is a professional. She has promised this content, and she is going to have to continue with this community because these people have paid for a service. Otherwise, she's going to have to refund their money. And then there's just a lot of other fallout from that. So I don't know whether she's going to do a new challenge following. I would be surprised to hear if she does or not.
It made it super clear on the other side when I could focus on what mattered. Same at the summit. when I was focused on ego-based things. How am I going to look? Like, what if they don't like me? It was all, am I enough? All things about me. I don't think I'm, why do they want me to lead this? All these different things that were in my head that were ego-based. It wasn't until I got rid of that I was actually able to push.
Well, they were wanting you to lead it because you're supposedly an expert in fitness and getting a shapely behind. So these people are coming to you because they probably are needing motivation to stay in an exercise program, and they are aware that their weight is an issue and their fitness is an issue, and they are coming to you because this is what you do for a living. This is supposedly your expertise. It's like somebody coming to me and asking me about a blood pressure medication. I could explain that's my area of expertise.
Aside and feel that and be like, oh, I'm here for them.
Yeah.
I'm not here for me.
Yeah.
I'm here for them.
No, this whole game is a game of ego having to die. And it's embarrassing for me to think back to October, because it is so apparent now how...
It's interesting they're mentioning about themselves, their egos, how they look, because they're supposed to be helping others. Isn't that why you produced the book? Was that because you had been so afforded this enlightenment to know how to navigate through life that you were going to share it with other people because you were blessed to know? And the same with Heidi. You're supposed to be a fitness expert. That's why people come to you, because you're supposed to teach them and get them to be motivated to want to keep that program as part of their everyday life. I can only do it by having dogs that insist that I walk them all the time. It's hard, and I was a distance runner for years, but it's hard. It's hard to maintain. So they're spending a good chunk of money to get motivated. That's why they come to you. So you're right. It's not about your egos.
Ego overrode this thing that was meant to be beautiful. This thing I still have so much pride in what was created, and my ego ruined it.
Can I say though, I think a lot of people don't, they only hear the word ego and think of it one way, like I have an ego, I like that, right? But ego is also the part of you that is insecure, that is saying, I don't know if I'm going to be enough, like I'm not enough, what do I need to do to win their like that is ego, right?
Yeah.
Like, so ego, it's not just like bravado and pomp, like it's not an arrogant person.
Usually when you are wanting to help people, and I learned this in the healthcare space, is that you really are supposed to put your ego aside, and that can be difficult to do. And unless you're able to do that, you never really are going to be able to help people. So I think this is an important conversation. And so maybe these aren't people who should be in a space trying to help people, because they really haven't figured out themselves at this time. I mean, I feel like it's a lesson in how not to live one's life is listening to these two adults talking.
Can be, but also like your ego and stripping away is the part of you that's protecting you from looking bad, and it can show up in so many different ways, right?
Oh yeah, no, the thing is, like, the crazy live I wish I hadn't done was as much passion as it was...
I don't know why he doesn't want to be known for that live. It's probably what's made him more famous than anything. Was that live on the patio of Peace when he was wearing his American flag socks and balking at his child that he was not going to make her any pancakes. I mean, Jesus Christ, you probably could have been talking about the book and making pancakes. I mean, that's, would have been much more interesting content.
Scary, like, it scared me, and it still is just like the worst look. It's like the most embarrassing thing I've ever done professionally. And
this is why you don't put everything out onto an Instagram early in the morning, and you know when to cut your stuff off. I rather comment on somebody else's messy life than try to bring commentary into my own. I am not going to say, I have my together, follow me, you should be trying to live my life, because I can promise you it would not be a life that everybody would want to lead. Some people would think it's fantastic. Other people would think it's horrific. So I just think it's really just this very, I find it very interesting when, you know, this whole space of self-help, life coaching, any of it. I think what we're just asking, and I think what people want, are what things could be the keys to bring me a certain sense of happiness and fulfillment at the end of each day. And I think if you look more simply at life, it can be very simple things. From the smell of good coffee, if you like coffee in the morning, to the snore of the dog that's lying next to you, to the snore of the other dog in front of you. It could be really simple things, and I think we're getting away from a lot of that.
It was like both sides of that sword of ego. It was the thing, like, I believe so much in this that I'll do literally anything to try and convince you of it. But when that's not managed, when that isn't handled in a way that doesn't make it feel desperate and ridiculous and, you know, like,
and on no sleep too. When you're not sleeping, you're not thinking right.
No, I mean,
you can't see the forest.
The thing is, I don't even want to make excuses, because it's just like, just because I did run myself into the ground and then decided to do a live after not sleeping for a couple of days, it doesn't make it okay. Like, it's still ridiculous. And
I don't want to laugh because that's really bad. I know when I have been in multiple shifts in a row and I've had little sleep, how irritable I can be. And I think his irritability, and I think he obviously cared a great deal about this project. I mean, it really meant a lot to him. So much so that he was not sleeping. And it could be for, we don't know enough, but if his project, it was coming out at just a time when people have certainly gotten onto YouTube and started to look much closer at Dave and Rachel's behaviors, and they're feeling betrayed by that, and right up to their final conference when obviously there were difficulties in their marriage. And then you have this person trying to sort of say, hey, divorce has really, not impacted me. I'm already into another relationship. I have all the answers to everything. And I think he is not reflective of where people are looking for answers from at this moment. And I think he just happened to get the backlash of a changing society. I think there are more people who will be questioning, and I hope will be questioning, these self-help gurus, these people that have the answers to life in one book, these people who talk about manifestation. It's just a place that is coming from just an enormous amount of privilege. It's this Good Morning America life, I call it. It just reeks of a privilege that I don't think is the reality for most people. I don't think that, talking about reality all the time is what people want to be looking at, because things are really stark and can be, that's my dog, she's got this esophageal thing. It's nothing bad. She takes the medication for it. I just want to throw that out there. So I think his book was just at the wrong time, and he wasn't the right author. And I think both of these people are probably used to getting things pretty easily, and things are a lot more challenging. And I'm just hoping that people do question these types of people, because I'd rather you spend money taking a psychology class, even though some of the online courses can be really poor, or just looking at something on YouTube that's free, and using your money in more thoughtful and productive ways.
Yeah, it existed because I was trying so hard to outrun my own self-doubt. I was trying so hard to outrun the worry that I might be exposed as having only had the success that I experienced in 2019, whatever year, 2020, sorry, 2020, gosh, 2020, because of not the thing I wrote, not the talent that I possess or my ability to write or speak, but because of other factors that now that they were gone would reveal that I had no talent. And the thing is, I know that there was a boost. I know that there was help. I know that, like, the aftermath of our marriage coming apart left so many people frustrated and disappointed, and yeah, guess what? I was among them. And so, of course, the atmosphere was going to be different.
I think that's really key, that he was frustrated at the end of his marriage. And so I think he had left a job that was very important. He had now a business built on being a brand, which is what everybody is told to be nowadays. It's literally a brand. And that brand fell apart. And so he tried to bring out a new brand, and that brand was not well received. And I think he probably did not realize that he needed to step back a little bit more time before he released himself as this and relaunched himself, not to use a boat metaphor, as a new brand. And I think it just came too soon. He was not in a place, and I don't think his audience was there either. I don't think there was an audience. I think there was a lot of support for him from the female audience, but the book he wrote was really not, built through courage. It's not really a sort of book that would be for the female audience. I don't think it really knew its audience, and I think that was the problem.
But the thing that was running in the voice of my critic was a very mean soundtrack. It was a very, very unkind voice that was telling me that I wasn't good enough to even write a book in the first place. And I, in that kind of fight or flight state, was doing a little bit of both. Like, my fight was like, I'll outwork this. And it wasn't a thing to try and outwork, it was a thing to try and release.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a whole different podcast in and of itself, because there are really terrible voices online. There are. And I think they, in part, those terrible voices were maybe part of what you were trying to outrun too, because you let those, for a minute, you let those terrible voices.
I think if you're going to have any type of, and I apologize for the light changes. I had light and then the light changed, so this is not the best recorded, so this is just a reaction channel. I've been wanting to record this all day, and I finally got a chance to sit down and do it, and it's taking me longer to make commentary on this than I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be quick, and it's going to be long as heck, because it was still a long podcast. But back to what they were saying about having this... oh, God, I'm going to have to go back now, because I totally lost my point. Hold on, let me go back.
Soundtrack. It was a very, very unkind voice that was telling me that I wasn't good enough to even write a book in the first place. And I, in that kind of...
I remembered my point. That if you are going to put yourself out into social media world, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere, you better be prepared that you're going to have some trolly ass people going to say some stuff about you.
Yeah.
And I think there was some outrunning of that. And I mean, internet bullying that's like maybe needs to be our next podcast because I got things to say to them.
We'll have to do explicit warning for language when we do that because of how I know you and I feel.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm just going to say it in a nutshell. Then I'm going to be really careful with my words. But the reality is, people who are purposely and intentionally mean, malicious online, plant seeds.
I wonder if they think I'm being malicious online because I'm taking time to comment on their podcast. But they've put the podcast out. They are public figures, and they put themselves in the health and fitness. And as a health professional, I am wanting to ensure that they are ensuring that people are taking the best care of their health. And I never hear them say, speak to your doctor before you enter a program with us. So I am always hesitant when you have somebody who is too nervous of people criticizing what they are doing. And if you can't manage that criticism, then you really need to spend some time reflecting on where the criticism's coming from and just not calling it bullying. That is just not necessarily what is happening. You are two grown adults. There are people who are adults like myself who are coming in and saying, hey, look, you are trying to offer, some type of help for people who are at maybe a time of struggle when you are having struggles yourself and haven't really learned how to manage these struggles and are becoming vicious towards people because you are struggling and you are having to feel the need to put your life out there because that's your brand, and your life is spiraling out of control and you are allowing people to see that spiral. People have commented on the spiral and how inappropriate it is, or certain other actions, and now you're upset with people and now you're going to call them a bully. And some people do say some really ugly things, but other people are more like, hey, look, maybe this is not your wheelhouse. Maybe this is not where you should be saying that your expertise is in. And so I think just automatically calling any type of critique coming from online as bullying is also not a very adult way to look at things.
Depression, sadness, insecurity, and fear in innocent people who are maybe not strong enough in that way. We all have insecurities, we all have weaknesses, and they feed on that, right?
Yeah.
A parasite is something that like eats the life of something else, right? So those, in my mind, like they are actually very comparable to a parasite. They are actually eating and killing off life in somebody else because they get in someone's head and they grow that fear, that self-doubt, that insecurity.
I didn't mean to stop it there. I feel like I shouldn't stop her when she's in the midst of a point. But when you're calling people that are commenting on your behaviors online as a parasite, I think you're still not understanding where people are coming from. So, I just, I think if people are just commenting on your physicality, then that is very parasitic because it's not contributing to any thought or conversation. But to just assume that critique of behaviors is just bullying and is not taking in the consideration of that person, then as I said, I don't know whether or not it is healthy for you to be trying to be present online. I know there's a lot of money and it's lucrative and it's appealing to get into this type of media and to be an influencer. Everybody wants to hit that gold mine, I promise you. But some people, I think, do it more successfully than others. And I think if you're doing it through showing your lifestyle, I think that's where it can get messy. I think this lifestyle blogging stuff is messy very messy, because nobody's life is perfect. And if you're trying to sell perfection, or you're trying to sell that you have the answers to things, and you know really that you don't have the answer to everything, and people are going to come after you, if that's what you're selling, then maybe that's what you shouldn't sell, if that makes sense.
There are two places that actually cause humans to ruin their own life because they begin to believe what those internet bullies are saying. They are responsible for suicide, like many suicides.
Yeah.
And when you actually think about that, and when you go look at these internet trolls.
Okay, I did not know I needed to put a trigger warning in here that Heidi was going to start talking about people unaliving themselves due to bullying online, and that's a really serious topic. And if she and Dave have felt anywhere near that, then maybe definitely remove yourselves from the online world. But this is a really serious topic that she's getting into. So obviously all the online channels and YouTube channels, and now I'm contributing obviously to the conversation, is impacting them. But you're grown adults, you're charging people money, you're trying to make money and people's hard-earned money, because you're supposed to be an expert in this like life shit. And if you aren't, then maybe pull away.
If you actually click, right? What's interesting to me is their bios usually say devout follower of Christ, or Jesus lover, or faithful mother and wife, right? Which is great, and I love that. But I think if we actually followed...
Oh my gosh, that was interesting. Heidi Powell calling out the Christians. I mean, that's funny. I want to be more amusing too. I got some funny stuff to say. I mean, these adults are wild, man. I mean, they have made their money and their life based on people liking them. And I guess now they don't feel very popular, then, she's getting pretty upset with people.